Welcome to Thunder Nerds. I'm Brian Hinton.
I'm Sarah Bessel.
And I'm Frederick Philip von Weiss, and thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do.
And do tech good.
And we're doing tech good here at DevFest Florida 2019. Brian?
It's in Orlando, Florida, at some location that I think we finally figured out. It's called
The Oviedo Mall.
Whoa, yeah.
Close enough.
And
Yeah,
we're
sure.
here with these
Yeah.
nice gentlemen. If you could both introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lee Warrick, front-end developer.
Eddie Otero, front-end developer.
Excellent. So what do you both do as your day-to-day? I know you just said front-end developer, but sometimes that means a little bit different depending on where you work and what your roles are.
Okay, I work for realtruck.com, which is an e-commerce company on the front-end application. So it's built with everything JavaScript. It's a Nuxt application, so a node server that does server-rendered view applications. So all the stuff where you click and it does a calculation for, okay, you drive a Ford F-150, and that means that you can buy these running boards or these light bars or that kind of thing. All that fun stuff is what I get to build out.
Oh, cool. What about you?
So I work on a few different projects, mostly Angular front-end. Angular 2+. Right now I'm working on a project that is Angular JS. I work for Capco. I'm a front-end developer. It's a financial consulting company. And yeah, that's what I do.
Excellent. And you both have a podcast together, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And what's the podcast?
So it's Tech Junior, techjr.dev,
Yeah.
and it's a podcast for junior developers.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we've
Nice.
been chatting back and forth a little bit, saying if we could do kind of a show, some kind of crossover or something like that. So it's great to have you guys both on here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you want to ask.
Yeah, we got some limited time today because I know that you have to run to a
Yeah.
talk. So,
Yeah.
so what are you
Sprint.
talking? Yeah, a sprint to a talk. So what are you
Yeah.
talking about today?
So the first talk that I gave was about hiring junior developers and having like a balanced team instead of only hiring senior developers, which seems to be the trend. And in a couple minutes, I'll be giving a talk on progressive web apps.
Oh, wow.
So what those are and what they're good for and when you should build one.
Oh, cool. So what are they? When should I use them? When should I build one?
Spoiler alert.
So progressive web apps are a really hard topic to talk about because the
We should
name-
talk about it then.
Yeah, the name doesn't mean anything. So you say like, oh, it's a progressive. Well, what's progressive about it?
What's the web?
Exactly. So
Existentially.
long story short, it's a way to deliver like a native experience. So maybe instead of building something in Java or Swift, you can build that same feel with web technologies. And then you can kind of upgrade to installing that application using some hooks that like the Chrome team is pushing for. So
Oh, okay,
that's
I
the
see.
progressive part. Like it starts as a website, but then it becomes like an application.
So what's the scenario where I would need to know this?
So it's kind of a tricky situation, but like traditional native applications, you're going to have to hire like another team to develop it. So you've got like a web team and an Android team and an iOS team. Whereas if you can use one of these technologies like PWAs, you can have one code base and then be able to use it on all those different devices. There's some trade-offs to it, but for the most part, like the direction that it's going is very promising.
Oh, interesting.
And did he rehearse it with you? What do you think of it?
He went over the talk he did earlier today, which was the junior talk.
Anybody, did you hear it?
Yeah, we went
What'd you
over it
think?
at the bar.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Not just saying because
No,
I would tell him the truth.
Okay.
Kind of have to.
And what's your experience been like at DevFest so far? Is there any talks that you both enjoyed?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it so far. The setting's kind of strange because it's a mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, you think it would be like a conference center or something downtown, but
Do you like that it's in the mall? Has it grown on you?
a little bit, yeah. I'm a little bit more sold on the idea after having been here.
Yeah. What about you?
It's been pretty good so far. Walking around the mall has been a little different. This is actually my first tech conference.
Oh,
so
cool.
you're gonna be
Yeah.
a judge it on.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
You're gonna go to another one and be like, why isn't this in the mall?
Where's the Chick-fil-A in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been developers for like a little over a year.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's awesome.
Just kind of getting into it.
Yeah, well, we should probably then talk about the podcast because that ties into that.
Yeah.
Tell us about the podcast.
So we focus on kind of everything in the direction of junior developers, which is a good thing because if you guys aren't web developers, you can come onto our podcast and listen about web technology from a beginner's perspective. So it's really easy to get on board with that stuff. I feel like a lot of the kind of talk and tutorials and that sort of kind of thing out there is directed at people that already have a ton of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of feel like there should be more in the direction of juniors and beginners and explain like I'm 5 and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Make it accessible for more people.
Love that. Okay. And that's where it started. Like, what made you think about that? What made you think like, we definitely need to do a podcast on this. I'm having this pain point. Like, where did that come from?
I was actually asking Eddie about this today.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
at least for me, it came from our experience through the boot camp, and wanting
see.
to share some of that with other boot camp students.
What boot camp?
We went to the UCF coding boot camp.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but sharing that journey and we going through all the hardship and studying and all the pitfalls and like going through this and taking in massive amounts of information and coding and trying to get this through to other people that are going through the same thing.
So as you've progressed, and you've been both for a year, right?
Mhm.
As you progressed, has it become harder for you to see things from a beginner's perspective? Are you kind of starting to see why things are written a certain way because you start to forget what you didn't know as you get more experienced?
Yeah, that's a constant challenge.
Good point.
Because when you're like knee deep in something every day,
Yeah.
you kind of are so familiar with it that you're like, of course people know about this.
Yeah.
And you have to stop yourself and say like, no, actually there's a lot of people that have no idea what I'm talking about, which kind of like rolls into the whole imposter syndrome thing. And people are constantly saying like, oh man, I want to write a blog, but I don't know what to talk about, or I want to do a podcast, I don't know what to talk about. Talk about anything that you've learned, because I guarantee that there's people out there that they're just hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, and we all have our own perspective, our own voice on all these different subjects. Even if somebody's heard it a million times, you're bringing something unique to it, and that's always valuable.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. So where can people find out about the podcast? What's the URL?
So you can go to the podcast at techjr.dev
Mm-hmm.
or any podcast app, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play.
Twitter.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at TechJR Podcast. So
Nice.
all that stuff, anywhere podcasts are sold.
How long is each show?
It runs a little long, but
Yeah, they're like anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on
Wow.
depending on the guest and how long Nerd Minute is, which is never a minute.
I love you did it wasn't so recent, but recently you did one with Janelle Pizarro, which is
Yes.
speaking here. We know Janelle, obviously, and it was a great episode. My
thank you.
favorite so far.
Yeah, we try to put all the like really dry technical stuff up front. And then at the end of the show, we ask like, hey, what kind of stuff are you into lately? Do you play any games or read any books or anything? And we just get like the absolute nerdiest stuff you've ever heard out of like the most dry, like business focused people that you could meet.
I am not dry.
Yeah, yes.
So
I was going more nerdy, but the dry thing too, I guess that makes sense.
no offense to any guests.
Yeah, but
All right.
Brian, yeah.
All right. Meet
That's
all
cool.
day long.
I
I know,
love
we're
you,
just
bud.
ranking on him all
Yeah.
day.
But it's so much fun, right?
He makes
But-
it so easy.
But we
But-
should probably cut
yes.
it. We want to make sure we can get to,
Yeah.
talk.
So,
Unless
so
he doesn't want
yeah,
to. Do you
so-
want us to keep you here?
I got a couple minutes if you have any other questions.
Well, now it's awkward.
Now it's
Thanks.
now I feel like we have to agree to questions.
So where can people find out more about you? Obviously, we know about Tech Junior. Where can find out more about both of you? What's your website, Twitter handle?
So you can find me at leewarrick.com or on Twitter at leewarrick and, connect with me on LinkedIn and all that good stuff.
For me, Instagram and Twitter, it's at Ed Otero, but the O's are zeros.
O's are zeros.
Yeah,
Oh, really? Tell me why.
because it was hard to get my actual last name. But yeah, that's the closest I can. I have to clean it up.
Love that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody
Yeah,
for watching.
everybody.
We got a lot more coming up.